Today, I'm going to take you on a behind-the-scenes look at the lawsuit filed by Marilyn Manson against Evan Rachel Wood and Illma Gore. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, I'm going to tell you exactly how much this case could be worth. Spoiler alert, it's a huge number. My name is Sina Rezvanpour. I'm an attorney, and I break down the latest news in the legal world. If you're not a lawyer, but you enjoy thinking like one, make sure to like and subscribe for tons of binge-worthy content just like this one. Without any further ado, let's jump right in. I've been a lawyer for over 11 years now, and I've never quite seen a complaint like this one. To better understand what I'm talking about, why don't we take a look at the very first page. I always start by looking at who's the law firm and who are the attorneys representing the plaintiff. Do they have a reputation in the legal world? Have they been lawyers for a long time? I always look at the bar numbers. The lower the bar number, the longer the person has been an attorney. In this case, Howard E. King, who's the lead partner in this law firm, has a 5-digit bar number. For example, I have a 6-digit bar number. And so that means that this guy's been a lawyer for at least 10 years longer, probably 20 years longer than I have. Next, you can see all the parties, all the causes of action. There's 4 of them. And then we see that a jury trial has been demanded. So there's 2 types of trials. There's jury trials and there's bench trials. Jury trials are where the case is obviously decided by a jury. A bench trial is when the case is decided by the judge. There is no jury. So I would choose, as a lawyer, a jury trial if I think that the jury's emotions are gonna align and sympathize with my client. Alternatively, if I want the case to be decided not based on emotions, but on facts and on the law, I may consider a bench trial. And that's because a judge is usually better than a jury member at separating their emotions when making a decision. At the very bottom of the first page, we see there's a long number, that's like a coded number. That number likely represents the client and matter number internally at the law firm. And at the very end, you see it says .13. That means that this document, this version that we're looking at, is the 13th version of this document. They did 13 drafts before coming up with this one. And that could sound like a lot, but for a case as important as this one, you want to make sure that your complaint is absolutely perfect, which could take a lot of tries. Moving on, let's take a look at the introduction on the next page. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I will read the first paragraph, and I'll tell you why. The first paragraph reads, "This action arises from the wrongful and illegal acts done in furtherance of a conspiracy by defendant Evan Rachel Wood and her on-again, off-again romantic partner, defendant Ashley Gore, also known as Illma Gore, to publicly cast plaintiff Brian Warner, professionally known as Marilyn Manson, as a rapist and abuser, a malicious falsehood that has derailed Warner's successful music, TV, and film career." Wow. So that one paragraph basically boils down the whole case into one sentence, essentially. And that sentence is going to frame how we're going to read everything else in this complaint going forward. And you want to make sure that the very first sentence is totally impactful. You want it to tug on emotions. You want it to frame a story that you're going to then further explain in the rest of your complaint. If you ask me, I think they did an incredible job with that, and I guarantee that was one of the hardest sentences to come up with in this whole complaint. Next, let's move on to the factual allegations. There is plenty of content out there that runs through all of the allegations made, so I'm not going to go through that with you today. Instead, I'm going to give you what a lawyer or what a legal expert thinks about the factual allegations. And the first thing that pops out to me is they are so incredibly detailed. You definitely don't need to be this specific. There's no requirement to be this specific in this document. It's not like a jury is going to decide the case based on this document, but that's how the lawyers are treating it. If I'm putting myself in the shoes of Marilyn Manson's attorneys, I look at this case as a war on his reputation. And Illma Gore and Evan Rachel Wood struck the first blow. You know, I don't know what's true or what's not, but again, if I'm Marilyn Manson's attorney, this is how I'm thinking. So they struck the first blow, and we're going to come back with an incredibly serious response. We're going to include 22 pages of allegations. We're going to include extra information to support those allegations, all of which is not really necessary, but we're going to do it because we know this case will get picked up by the press, and we want to reframe the story that we think has been told inaccurately. Along those same lines, we're going to talk now about the attachments. There's 3 attachments that are included at the very end of the complaint, all of which, again, are unnecessary. You don't have to include any attachments for a case like this, but they likely included those attachments to say Not only are we making all of these allegations, but we have proof to support it. And we likely have more proof, or we're gonna get more proof. Whether or not that's true, we don't know. This could be a bluff, and it could be they're showing their best hand, they're showing their cards and saying, you don't wanna mess with us, but that's all they have. Or this could just be the tip of the iceberg. Really quick, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe while you're at it. I spend my nights and weekends making these videos, so any support that you could show is so greatly appreciated. Next, we'll move on to what I think could be the biggest deal in this complaint. There's a lot of crazy allegations that are made here, possibly true, possibly not, but what I consider to be the most serious is found on page 10, section B, and that's alleging that Illma Gore falsely impersonated a federal agent. And apparently they have some proof to support that. This is a huge deal because you do not mess with the federal government. This could mean that there may be actual federal agents that are witnesses in this case. And we know as lawyers that juries will always believe someone that's in a uniform. Not always, but that's the general saying. And if you can have a witness that's from the government, that's on your side and saying things that support your case, man, you're in great shape. Now let's jump to the very end of the complaint, page 22, and that's where we look at the prayer for relief. The prayer for relief is where you're telling the court what exactly you're looking for if you have a successful case. In this case, if we look at line item A, it is actual damages, things like special and general damages. Special damages or specific damages are things that are specific. That's obvious. Those are things that you can actually come up with a specific dollar amount to say that's how much this is worth. Those are things like lost contracts, dropped from your record label, losing out on a TV or a movie deal. If we contrast that with general damages, those are things like pain and suffering, emotional distress, stress, anxiety, loss of sleep. Those are a lot harder to put a specific dollar number on, which is why we call those general damages. Moving on to line item B, this is an incredibly important one, and that's punitive damages. Punitive damages are a multiplier that we use to punish the defendant. When I say multiplier, we look at the actual damages. Let's say it's $1 million. And in California, you can ask for 9 times that, so 9 million in punitive damages, which is crazy. Moving on to item C, those are attorney's fees and costs. In this case, that could easily be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Line item D is for an order enjoining Evan Rachel Wood and Illma Gore from doing certain wrongful conduct that's alleged in the lawsuit. So that essentially means we're asking the court to say, defendants, you can no longer be doing these things that you're doing. We think those things are wrong and you're not allowed to do those things. And line item E, it's a general catch-all. We always include that in every case. It's basically any other relief, any other things that the court thinks are appropriate in this case, we're willing to accept those too. So now that we've gone through all of that, how much do I think this case could be worth? Well, it helps to start by looking at the general and specific damages. So general damages, I would expect those to be at least $1 million in pain and suffering, emotional distress. Definitely could be higher. I think in this case, it's a little bit unique. Manson should not be treated differently because he's a celebrity, but at the same time, he kind of should. And that's because the whole world is watching. When your reputation is ruined and everyone knows who you are, that's a way bigger deal than if your reputation is ruined and no one's ever heard of you. For specific damages, I'm guessing here, but that could easily be somewhere 2 to 5 million, maybe more. And I'm just guessing what the value could be for his TV deals, his movie deals. It likely is probably going to be a number higher than that. But if we add those two up, $1 million plus 2 to 5, that gives us $3 to $6 million. If you multiply that by 9 for punitive damages, that gets you to $27 to $54 million. So if I was Manson's attorney, I would go in front of the jury and I would ask probably for $50 million or maybe more. Sure, I'm hoping that they give that number, but I'm also hoping that once the jury hears that number, if they award a lower number, it's still a huge number. So maybe I ask for 50 million and the jury comes back and they offer half of that. That's pretty damn good. $25 million is nothing to bat an eye over. I want to hear from you in the comment section. Do you think this case will be successful? And if so, how much would you award Marilyn Manson if you were sitting on the jury? Personally, I think this case could easily be worth $20 million or more if Marilyn Manson is successfully able to prove all the allegations that he's made in this complaint. If you like this content and you'd like to see more, make sure to like and subscribe. I'm attorney Sina Rezvanpour, and this is not legal advice.